Thank you so much. I am so excited to be here. So for those of you that saw me dancing on the dance floor last night, I have a little confession to make. Tamika's here somewhere. I almost burned the place down. Evidence of my speaker ribbon that almost burned down. So thankfully, I did not burn the place down. But I have to say, I am at so many events because this is what I do as a speaker. Last night was epic. So congratulations to the FSAE entire team. It was awesome. And to the Breakers for sponsoring such a fantastic event. I want to say thank you to my sponsor, Florida Sports Coast, and of course, Visit Tampa Bay for this fabulous luncheon, and to the entire AV team, so the Lynx and American Audio. So we're going to start with a story about my grandfather, Banarsi Das Saraf. He was a freedom fighter during the revolution in India. And as it turns out, on the day that my father was born, in 1946, my Dadaji, my grandfather, was sitting in jail with Gandhi. So I grew up with stories about my grandfather. He was this tenacious fighter who never gave up, no matter how hard it was. Of course, India gains its independence, but the country is in chaos. Sound familiar? And the market is going crazy. The economy is in turmoil. Our family, we were jewelers, were struggling. We didn't know from one day to the next if we could feed the 12 brothers and sisters that my dad had. So one day my dad gets this idea. He's going to come to America to achieve the dream, right? And he comes with my mom with this simple belief that with hard work, with hard work and commitment and education, they can make it. Eventually, I'm born, Rashmi, which means the rays of the morning sun. In other words, the light from the sunrise. And I'm born into this legacy of courage, of justice, and of never, ever giving up, no matter how hard it is. So one day, when I'm 10, I was sitting in the car with my dad, and I used to do this thing. I would argue with my dad every time I could. So we're sitting in the car, and my dad looks over at me and he goes, Rashmi, you should be a lawyer one day because you're smart, you're confident, and then you can argue with whoever you want. And I look over him and I'm like, okay, I'm going to be a lawyer. And that meant from that day forward, success looked like I'm going to be the best lawyer I can be. So I go on to high school, and my parents came with $8 in their pocket. And by all accounts, they make it. We went from nothing to living in this house on the ocean in arguably the nicest neighborhood in Miami. And in 1989, the real estate market crashed, right? My parents were in real estate, and we lost everything. And I watched my parents carry whatever little they could into this small home near my high school. They had to file for bankruptcy. We lost the home to foreclosure. And I watched my parents cry. But they did this really important thing, which is they told my sisters and I every step of the way what was happening. They never hid it from us, and they surrounded us with hope, with love, and with faith. So I'm 18, and I decide, wait, I've watched my parents struggle. I've heard about my grandparents' struggle. I figured it out. I am never going to struggle. Right? Like, I figured out my plan. And for me, that looked like going to the best schools, getting the best grades, making a lot of money. So I've drawn from my grandparents' story, my parents' story, and my own 25-year career in law, banking, academia, and insurance to create the RISE process, which I actually didn't even realize I was doing my entire life. And here's the thing, right? My story is my story. You're going to hear it today. Your story is yours. But this is what I know for sure. Every single one of us will struggle. It's the universal truth, right? And struggle looks differently for all of us. Medical, Marital, legal, financial, or maybe it's change, uncertainty, anxiety, stress. Sometimes we're dealing with struggle, 3 different struggles all at the same time, right? At home, at work, in our communities. And this is what I believe. The world tells us, most leaders believe, rise above, move on, push harder. I think they're wrong. Because I believe when we go through struggle and the fear and uncertainty, we go through those moments to grow and evolve and become better versions of ourselves, to learn something about ourselves, to give back to others as we go through the struggle. So we don't rise above, we rise by going through it. And my job today is to help you think and feel differently. So I'm going to walk you through a 4-step process. Reframe, identify, surrender, and then evolve. So by all accounts, I am following my plan. I go to UNC Chapel Hill. Any Tar Heels out here? No Tar Heels, okay. Well, go Heels. I win the awards, I get into the honorary societies. I'm like doing my thing, right? All the plans that I had are coming true. I go on to Morgan Stanley on Wall Street, and I'm an investment banker. And then I went to Columbia Law School. And yes, graduated top of my class. Eventually, I marry a firefighter. And we have these 2 beautiful children. Like, aren't they yummy? But I can tell you at this point, it's 2007, I don't even remember taking this picture, guys. Because I was hustling constantly. I was going to every networking event, missing dinner, selling my services at the gym, going to every possible thing to make ends meet, to achieve the goals, to make the money. And I forgot that I was doing it for them. You see, I didn't even realize that I was trapped in my own self-imposed prison of glass walls that looked beautiful to everyone on the outside. But for me, internally, it was stress and burnout and overwhelm all the time. And I kept thinking, like, what next can I do? Who else can I go after? What other client can I get? What more can I do for my kids? And I forgot to spend time with them in those moments. So it's in this context that I get the chance to meet a real estate developer. Now, who remembers what was happening in 2007 in real estate? We all remember that, right? So I'm in Miami. I have my own real estate law firm, the heyday. And I'm running my own solo practice. I'm a solopreneur wearing all these hats. And I get the chance to meet a real estate developer. So this is what's going on in my head. Oh my God, if I can get this one big client, that means volume business, which means financial stability, which means more time with my kids. So I jumped. Like I was gonna get this client. I was so hungry. And I remember I walked into his office in Miami Beach. Actually, the developer himself sat in a side office. His 2 operations guys were in the conference room with me. And essentially, they were explaining what they've already been doing with another big law firm, but they wanted to come and work with me. Which, by the way, should have been a huge red flag, right? Why would they leave a big law firm to work with little old me? But instead, I was like flattered and thought I was special. Essentially, they were giving buyers incentives to buy condo units, which is kind of what every other developer was doing at the time, and I knew that. But see, my inner voice was screaming, and I didn't listen. Right, we have a moral compass. We have that gut feeling, and I got really good at shutting it down, at silencing it. So within 2 weeks, I had my first closing request, and it was like a steamroll came in, and I never took the time nor made the time to do what I should have done as an attorney, which is ask questions. So Christmas of 2007, we had like a family reunion of sorts. So my aunties, my uncles, my cousins, my sister's kids, everyone comes in from everywhere, right? Philadelphia, Houston, Boca, everywhere. You get it, I come from a really big family. And everyone comes in for like a family reunion. So it's 8 o'clock, Christmas Eve, and I go into my kid's bedroom to make them sleep. Now, we have just baked Christmas cookies and left them out for Santa, and you can smell the pine tree in the air from the tree. We've drank eggnog, the music is playing, right? We're all in a festive holiday mood. And I go into my kid's bedroom to make them sleep. They used to share a bedroom at the time. So Maya was in her crib, and Kyler was in his toddler bed, and I was sitting in my glider. You guys remember those? And I used to sing to my children every night, the same lullaby that my parents used to sing to me. Aajkal mein dal gaya din hua tamam. I still get nostalgic when I hear it. So as I'm singing to my children, I look down at my BlackBerry, and there's an email from a realtor regarding a closing happening in 2 days. Now I have a question. Does anybody expect me to answer an email on Christmas Eve at 8 o'clock? Does anybody think I should? It's probably a toss-up. Some people think yes, some people think no. But I'm a solo entrepreneur, and I pride myself on my customer service and immediate feedback, so I answer the email. And in the email, there's one line and one attachment. And the line hit me like a sucker punch. It was like, that doesn't feel right. But I forward the email to somebody in my office, expecting they'll tell me if there's something wrong with it, and they're going to open the attachment. Has anyone forwarded an email without opening an attachment? Or maybe without actually giving the credit that an email is due and time? I mean, we've all done it. It's like just this one time. So why do I forward this email so quickly? Well, I have a house full of relatives. It's almost Christmas morning. My kids are not yet sleeping, and none of my presents are wrapped. I'm going to tell you in a little bit what that email stood for. So I did about 200 closings with this developer in like 15 months, and I stopped working with him, and I merged my practice with my father's, who's also a real estate attorney. We don't even do transactional work. We're litigating, and I'm representing all the big banks, and I'm doing basically foreclosure work, litigation work for the banks, for the government. In 2011, 2 FBI agents showed up at my office. Now, I don't know how many of you have ever dealt with the FBI, but it is freaking scary. Like, they operate off that intimidation, right? So they showed their badges, and I didn't know that I could actually say to them, hey, can I call you back with an attorney? And of course, they're banking on that. And I feel like I should know better, but I didn't. So instead, I let these 2 officers into my office. I used to have this circular table near my desk. And they grilled me for 4 hours. And they showed me documents and pictures and emails. And I'm answering these questions, yes, no, without actually even remembering what happened 4 years earlier. And they leave. 2 years later, I get a grand jury subpoena for documents. Now, I'm still operating under this assumption that I'm just a records custodian. My files are perfect. They've already passed audit. So I submit all my files. I can tell you that within 3 months, my attorney called me into his office, and he said, Rashmi, you're a target. I don't know if you guys know what that means. I didn't know what that meant. Like, I'm not a criminal lawyer. I'm a dirt lawyer. I'm a real estate lawyer. And I was shaking uncontrollably because this was my whole life. This was everything I had worked so hard for, and all I could think about is, I'm disgracing my parents and my family and my children. And I sit on a lot of boards in Miami, so I'm thinking, oh my God, all these nonprofits are going to be affected because of me. So in April of 2014, I was indicted for 1 count of conspiracy to commit bank fraud and 24 counts of bank fraud. They took 24 transactions and attached it to the complaint. And I remember right after I got indicted, it was really important that we told our Indian community. So my parents were leaders in our community, and I didn't want people to gossip about it or hear about it. So we called all of these aunties and uncles to the house. So they all came over. It was a Saturday night. We fed them samosas, of course, because we know that's the right thing to do. And my dad stood in the corner, and I sat on the couch. My mom was here to the left of me. And this uncle from the community, who was sitting here next to me, says to me, "Beti," which in Hindi means daughter, "this is not happening to you, it's happening for you." And I'm going to tell you that before these aunties and uncles came to the house, I was so sure that they would all leave. That I had disgraced my parents so much that they would shun us. Because my whole life, all of my self-value, my self-worth, my self-love was rooted in achievement. And God, this did not look like achievement. But you know what happened? Every one of those aunties and uncles came up to me and hugged me and told me they loved me. Because all I could do in that moment was reframe. And I was so scared of like, what was going to happen? What will people say, right? But all I could do was convert this negative into a positive, which, by the way, for me looked like owning it, accepting the truth, facing that dragon in the eye. So a couple months after I got indicted, my attorney called me to his office and he said, "Rashmi, I want your parents and you to come in for a meeting." Now, we were so convinced we were going to go in and talk about the trial, which was set for 4 months later. So we're going to talk about exhibits and expert witnesses and my testimony. And instead, David, my attorney, who is like a family friend, lives down the street from me, his wife went to college with me, sat down and basically gave us a presentation and said, "Rashmi, if you go to trial, the government's going to put up their case, we're going to put up our case, and the government's going to give their rebuttal." Any guess on the rebuttal evidence? The email. One small little decision. How could I have known? He looked at me and he said, "Rashmi, I know you didn't walk into this planning a crime. I've known you for 25 years. But here's the thing, you knew enough. And not doing something is still doing something wrong." And I did the hardest thing I've ever had to do, which is I took off my fighting hat and I put on ownership. And I made a decision to plead guilty. And what was going on in my head is, what will people say? What will people do? Who's going to love me? Who's going to be in my corner after this? What will happen to my reputation, right? But the thing is that we all face all of these challenges, that if we can figure out how to reframe it, or failure, that if we can just reframe it, right? So I'm going to go on with my story, but I have a quick challenge for you. And whoever guesses, I won a bottle of wine yesterday in the wine toss, so you get the bottle of wine. All right, so I'm going to get the bottle of wine, but who can guess who this is? He was in foster care in Georgia. He was kicked out of his home at 16. At the age of 3, he could recite all of Jose Marti's poems by heart. You can keep reading. Tell me somebody if somebody can guess. In 2024, he bought naming rights to a college football stadium. Who got it? All right, so here's a bottle of wine for you. It's going to be up here for you. I'm not going to run down. Yeah, he co-founded Slam, who I got to be a commencement speaker for. Here's the thing, right? Pitbull, who we all love, right? All right, I'll let you guys dance a little bit with me. So here's the thing, right? Pitbull, you guys might not want to be a famous star like Pitbull or a performer, but this guy turned being kicked out of his home, being a drug dealer, into who he is today, an entrepreneur, a successful business person, beloved by so many. Right? And I've had the chance to meet him. He's the kindest, most human, loving person. You don't really get that sometimes from watching him on stage, but that's who he is. And he tells me all the time, like, he reframed failure into something else. And no matter what we're going through, right, like, he went through the pits. And he's one of my inspirations. All of you as association leaders, right, I got a chance to talk to so many of you yesterday, whether it's membership challenges, talent workforce challenges, the government uncertainty, of course, market volatility, regulation issues. Each of you, whether it's a member association, a business association, you all are facing so many aspects of uncertainty right now. It could be paralyzing, it could be daunting. But what I'm going to challenge you to do is to reframe the conversation that's going on in your head, in your organizations, into how can we turn this into a positive? What can we do that's different from before? And turn that uncertainty into limitless possibility and results. So I also believe, more than anything, as you guys heard, right, I tried to avoid struggle my whole life. And what I've learned is that struggle isn't a detour. It's actually the doorway into something we can't even see. We don't even know what that's going to be yet. And when we can actually reframe our struggle from being a detour into a doorway, we open our eyes into the possible, the unknown, but a better version of ourselves. So once we reframe, we identify. Now, I'm going to tell you that after I decided to plead guilty, I called 200 people in my life. I didn't want anybody to read about it, talk about it, gossip about it. So because I'm an overachiever, I made a spreadsheet. That's what I do. And I started calling every single person on this list. My friends from elementary school, high school, college, law school, my kids' friends, parents, my kids' teachers, politicians in Miami, executive directors of nonprofits, literally everybody that knew me as a person, at my core. And just like I've told all of you, I told them one by one what I had done. And I owned it. I walked through shame and took responsibility for what I did. And I was so sure, just like when all those aunties and uncles came, that every one of these people was going to hang up on me. Like, why would they want to be friends with me? Because they only love me because I'm an overachiever, because I sit on their board, because I've gotten all the A's and got to the best schools, right? Like, that's my definition of why people love me. And instead, the judge got 182 letters of support. It's like I got eulogized before I died. Who gets that opportunity? People shared stories of, like, things that I had done for them in high school that I didn't even realize I had touched their lives in such a powerful way. So here's what I've learned. People are very forgiving of our humanity when we give them a chance. Like, I had to take that armor off and let people see me, flaws and all. Because I promise you, I spent my whole life trying to be the perfect little Indian girl. And what I realized is actually people love me for me. One of my friends said, Rashmi, you stood naked and exposed for all of us to judge you, and we did. And we got the chance to see ourselves in you and teach our kids about you. And we love you. It was such a moment of just clarity of why and what I do and for what purpose. So how many of you have been in a federal courtroom? They're actually, one person over here. They're almost as big as this room, honestly. They're really long. There's no, what are these called? Chandeliers. But there are very long, tall rooms. And on the day of my sentencing, I walked into this room, and I stood at that podium, and all 182 people that wrote me letters sat in that courtroom. They flew down from New York, drove in from Charlotte, Houston. I mean, literally friends and family that I didn't even know were going to be there on a hot Tuesday summer afternoon in June showed up for me. And though most people might say, wow, you're going to be sentenced? What a failure. Instead, what I learned, for me, success is defined by how many people can I touch and inspire today. Because on that day, no matter what the outcome, those people were there to love on me unconditionally. And I don't believe it's because I'm lucky or because there's anything special about me. I truly believe it's because I owned it. Because I showed my humanity to others. And I let them stand in my place and relate to me when the judge sentenced me to a year and a day in prison. And when that happened, I fell down and I was hysterical crying. And it's not because I was scared for me, right? I'm a survivor. I'm a fighter. I'm my grandfather's granddaughter. What was I scared for? Right. What's going to happen to my kids? Who will love on them? But all I could do in that moment was surrender. And yeah, like I had to physically surrender, but mentally I had to let go. I had to let go of ego, because I promise you, like many of you, I was totally trapped in ego. I was trapped in fear. I was so scared about what was about to come. And I am a control freak, okay? Ask my ex-husband. And I now had zero control about what was going to happen in my life. Like, where am I going to sleep? What am I going to eat? Who am I going to be with? What am I going to wear? Everything. I was entering a moment of complete 100% uncertainty in my life. And for someone that was always trying to control every little thing in my life, I had none. And I remember the morning that I surrendered, one of my happy places is Matheson Hammock Park, for those of you that know Miami, and I used to be an avid runner. So the morning I surrendered, I had one goal, which is I wanted to run at sunrise and pray with my parents and my family. Now you can see that my son's missing because he was so upset. You'll probably be able to see that my dad's crying. My mom's hard as nails. And I did not know what was about to come. It just felt like I was about to enter a twilight zone. There's no other way to describe it. And when I did surrender, I lost Rashmi Aaron, or they tried to get me to lose it, and I became 05121-104. Right? I was handcuffed and shackled with the waist chain. I was stripped, I was searched. All of it that you can imagine I went through. But all I could do is let go. I had to let go of all these things that were going on in my head. Is what were people going to say? Who will love me now? What will happen to my reputation? Right? Because we have all these limiting beliefs. But what I've learned is that letting go is power. Letting go actually gives us the space to create, to innovate, to think beyond what we're being held back by. So what can you surrender to? I'd love for you guys to do a quick exercise and take out your phones. I know all y'all have for your phones. Thankfully, you're not looking at them until now. So everyone take out your phones real quick and open your Notes app. I love my Notes app. Do you guys use Notes? Okay, start a new note. And think about what is one thing you're trying to control in your life right now. A person, an outcome, an issue, a situation at work, something that you're trying to control. That you wish you could just, what's it called, a magic 8-ball? Like a magic 8-ball is going to tell you what the answer is right now. Okay, does everyone have their thing they're trying to control? All right. Got it? All right, now everyone delete it. Hit the backspace and delete it. And now delete the note. Letting go is as easy as that. It's a choice. It doesn't mean that the thing that you are worried about or anxious about goes away. It means you've made the conscious decision to let go of trying to control the outcome. Right? I had no choice but to let go of all the things that I knew were holding me back. So once I let go, then I could evolve. Right? Like I said earlier, right? Struggle to me is an opportunity for us to evolve if we start seeing it like that. Whatever the uncertainty is, whatever the struggle is. I evolved in several ways. One of them, so my kids used to come and visit me when I was in prison. This was the day after Christmas in 2015. Now, you might notice that orange is one of my brand colors. It's in many of the slides. I do have orange on a little bit today. Orange and Carolina blue are my brand colors. It's not because orange is the new black, though I do get asked a lot. Orange is actually the color of transformation, which is why it's one of my colors, and I've obviously transformed my life. I have rid my entire closet of safari green, though, and I will never wear safari green again. You know, my kids would come and visit me. They would drive 5 hours each way, and all they wanted to do was love on me and hug me and kiss me and play board games with me. Fun fact, they would buy me Chobani Flip, which had just come out from the vending machines, and I was not allowed to touch dollar bills, any money. So they were 9 and 10, would go and put money in the vending machines for me. And I had spent so much of their childhood rushing and hustling and getting to the next thing, next client, make more money. And when they would come visit me, I learned to be where my feet are, to just be present with them in that moment and love on them. Sometimes we get so busy, right? We forget why we're doing it all. So I don't know how many of you have actually watched Orange is the New Black, but my cube was kind of similar, except we had bunks. So I was on the top bunk. And you guys see that ledge next to the mattress? I used to keep a gratitude journal. And so I would, every morning, the guards would walk by from count, and I'd sit up and I'd turn my night light on and I'd grab my gratitude journal, and the first thing I would do before I got down from the bed is I would write in my gratitude journal. I'm not with my kids. I'm away from my life. I have no idea what waits for me when I come out, but I found gratitude. And just like I found presence to be where my feet are, I found gratitude. So these are 2 pages from my actual journal that I wrote the day before and the day of Christmas. I knew my kids were coming the next day. And yeah, I was really sad that I wasn't with them for Christmas. But I could find gratitude, 3 things I was grateful for, 3 things I wanted to try to do today, and 3 affirmations. No matter what we're going through, no matter what the challenge, no matter what's going on at home, at work, if we make a mental commitment, and studies show if we start writing down what we're grateful for, right, it changes our mindset, it reduces stress, mental health, all the things. The last thing I would do before I went to sleep is I would write in my gratitude journal. And I made it a mental point. I was committed to finding gratitude in prison. And the more I did it, the more at peace I was. I still had no idea what was coming for me. I still was living in uncertainty, but I could find peace through gratitude. So while I was in the federal system, so I spent 10 days in a downtown holding center in Miami. Eventually I was moved to Coleman, which is an hour north of Orlando. And I spent most of my time there, but at one point my attorney says to me, Rashmi, there's an attorney in Tampa who wants you to testify in another case. I know that Tampa's supporting this lunch today, so here's a story for y'all. So I get told, actually I get asked, do you know anything about these documents? Can you go and testify in this other case? And my attorney says, look, if you testify in this other case, there's a chance you get to come home early. So I'm like, oh, I'll take that deal. I can skip halfway house and house arrest. So I'm traveling in handcuffs and shackles and waist chain in an armored van to Tampa. And what's going on in my head is, I don't belong with those people. Now, I've already spent 5 months in federal. I have friends there. I have a prison mom who taught me to crochet, which is like, I am not domestic at all. But as I'm driving to Coleman, to county, what's happening in my head is, I'm an attorney, I'm educated, I don't belong with those women. And I ended up spending 23 days with these people in county jail. The woman above me was a prostitute heroin dealer. The woman next to me was a homeless person who had been selling drugs, and above her, a 24-year-old meth dealer with a 4-year-old at home. I cooked with them, ate with them, prayed, cried, worked out with them, slept with them. And I realized, how dare I pass judgment on them? Because there, but for the grace of God, there go I. And I realized we are all drops from the same ocean. We are all humans living a flawed existence, trying to learn and grow every day. And they became my sisters. So one day, while I was still there, we used to watch TV whenever we could, like whenever we had time, or whenever we were allowed. They used to have a TV like stuck to the wall, like at the DMV. And there was this like row of blue, cold, hard metal chairs stuck to the ground. So we would sit in these chairs and watch TV. So one night a movie comes on. Have you guys seen Burlesque? With Cher and Christina Aguilera? Like, we all want to look like Christina Aguilera in that movie. Like, super fun, joyful movie. So we all get up and we start dancing and we're having fun and like singing, and it's a great fun time. We go back to our cube after the movie ends, and one of the girls says to me, "Hey, do you know how to Bollywood dance?" And I'm like, wow, that's like a trick question, because all of us Indian people, we think we know how to Bollywood dance. I sort of feel like I know how to dance. So I'd love all of you to stand up, and I'm going to show you what I did and taught them. Does anybody want to volunteer to come up here with me? Tamika, where are you? All right. So one of the girls starts humming this song, which you all will know, and I'm going to teach you exactly how I taught them in county jail. Because there I was, and I learned to find joy. I had spent my whole life trying to achieve, to be the perfect little girl, to make my parents proud of me, to make my community proud of me, and I robbed myself of so much joy. So I'm in county jail, and this song starts playing. You guys know this song? Yeah, some of you are already into it. All right, so this is what I said. Put your hands up, like a goalpost. And then you go up and down with your shoulders. And then open and close the light bulb. And then you can move your hips a little bit. And so I learned, as I'm in county jail with these women, to find joy, no matter what we're going through, right? Thank you so much. Because no matter what we're going through, whatever the challenge, whatever the anxiety, whatever the uncertainty, if we just find joy and be present and find gratitude, we evolve, we grow. The only way to grow is by reframing and identifying and surrendering. The only way to evolve is by surrendering to that part of ourselves and letting go to whatever the uncertainty is. And I know that you guys are facing really hard challenges right now, right? So, because I testified in that case in Tampa, I was taken back to county 2 weeks later. And my attorney had said, okay, the hearing is at 9 o'clock on Friday morning. Call me at 10. So the day before, oh, hold on. We missed a slide. Hold on. Wait, don't want, you can't see that yet. Okay, hold on. Sorry, the clicker's a little wonky. All right, so the day before, my parents have taught me well, right? You can't go empty-handed anywhere. So I decided, I learned a lot of prison hacks. Okay, we're gonna talk about one. I learned how to make prison chocolate truffles. You guys saw these things that I left on your chairs. Now you understand why one of the sides says prison chocolate truffle recipe. So you may wonder, how do you make chocolate truffles in prison? Okay, well, you might ask somebody who works in the kitchen to steal cream and butter, and you might sort of take chocolate milk from the chow hall, And then I bought a couple things like fake Oreo cookies and Hershey's from the commissary. And my bunkie taught me how to make chocolate truffles. And we used to, all of us in the housing unit, we would share this like tray whenever we would make these truffles. And usually it was because we wanted to eat them. Okay, but this time I was making them to take to my kids, hoping that the next day the judge was going to give me an early release and I was going to go home. So I put the truffles out to dry. The next morning, 10 o'clock, I call my attorney. And I walked up to these payphones. Well, do you guys know what payphones are? Right? So they had these payphones, and I had to pick up the receiver and like dial 50 gazillion numbers just to get out. And by the time I got out and my attorney got on the phone, the first thing he said was this: "You're going home!" And that's what it felt like. Complete elation and shock that I was going to get to go home. Because when you're in the system, it feels, obviously you're in prison, it feels like you're trapped. And I learned this incredible thing while I was there, that I had to lose my freedom to gain complete freedom. Because through this process, I took off my armor, I walked through shame, and I didn't have to hide from anybody or anything anymore. So the next call I made was to my mom. So my parents knew, of course, that there was a hearing, but we live 5 hours away. So I called and I said, "Mom, Dad can leave, I'm coming home." And you know what she said? "Dad left an hour ago." Like, that's the kind of faith my parents have. And then I said, "Don't tell the kids." So they were supposed to come to visit me the next morning. They were about to leave to drive. And I didn't want them to know, I wanted to surprise them. So 5 hours later, I walked out of prison. I ran into my dad's arms and hugged him. I changed really quickly at the first Florida Turnpike rest stop I could. My mom sent clothes. So I threw away my prison clothes, put on my own clothes. And when I got home, my mom, in the Indian community, we do a little worship, like when somebody comes home. So my mom did this worship ceremony for me. And as I walked in, this is the video, now you can see it, of me surprising my kids. And this is when I decided to start my new life and to start a new chapter. Because success for me is not what am I achieving. It's touching people's lives and spending time with my kids. And the more I've told my story, the more I see and realize that the power to my story is not my story. It's that how I have risen through this whole experience of uncertainty and struggle, because we will all struggle, right? I 100% firmly believe that all of you are capable of rising through uncertainty. That's my daughter calling. Let's decline that. Sorry. Apple Watches these days. But if we reframe, identify, surrender, and then evolve, I know that every one of you, no matter what the challenge and uncertainty you're facing in your associations, at home, no matter what, oh, she's pretty insistent. Our kids are insistent. You can rise through it, right? The other thing that I realized is I had spent my whole life believing I had to do it alone. I never wanted to ask for help. I never wanted to get a second opinion. I'm the oldest of 3 daughters. Like, I had to do everything by myself. I had to know it all. Somehow people think attorneys have to know it all. And what I realized through this is that actually, every step of this journey, every single person showed up for me. I really believe when we rise through our struggles and we share it and we're vulnerable and we talk about it, we rise together. This association exists for all of you to collaborate, to share your struggles, to share your pains, to learn from each other. Tamika was sharing something last night about how she learned something about how to, it was like selling a presidential suite to, overcome income. Like all of these little things and tactical things to figure out and manage budget line items. Or a Wi-Fi issue. I also learned that last night. Wi-Fi is a big thing you guys deal with as a line item issue. Like all of these challenges, when you share them, which is what this association is here for, and each of your associations is there for, we rise together. We become connected. Mike yesterday from Novi was saying, like, if we just had more community and connection and belonging, We can grow and evolve together. So I have one last quick story, but I would love if you could take your phones out again. Give me some feedback. I'd love to continue to be better at what I do. If you could take the time to give me some quick feedback, I would love that. And I'm going to end on a quick story. And as a thank you, you already have my prison recipe, but I will be sending you an abbreviated slide deck. But I want to end with one quick story. So when my dad was 12, he had just finished reading Gandhi's autobiography. Now, my dad comes from this tiny little village, no paved roads, and by this time, my grandfather, my Dadaji, had fallen very ill because the jail conditions were so bad. So on this particular day, my dad comes home from school, and my grandfather, my Dadaji, says, hey, let's go for a bike ride. Now, to be clear, he would sit on a carriage connected to my dad's bike because he really couldn't breathe well. So dad comes home, he changes quickly, he gets on his bike, and Dadaji sits in the carriage, and they start riding around on these dirt roads of India. And they come to this nearby lake. They get off the bike. My dad picks fruit from the trees. And as they're eating their fruit, my dad turns to his dad and says, I don't understand. Why would Gandhi write about this really shameful moment in his life? Because you see, in one of the chapters, Gandhi shares this incredibly humiliating moment from his life. So my dad says, I don't understand. Like, he has now documented it in his autobiography for the entire world to read about forever. Why would he do that? Isn't he embarrassed? And my grandfather turns to my dad and says, because that's the point, son. When you go through life's hard lessons, you have a responsibility to share it so that others will never make those same bad decisions. I am my grandfather's legacy. I am here, and my why is so that every one of you know that no matter what uncertainty, whatever struggle you're going through, you can rise through it. But what's your legacy going to be? What can you commit to doing today? At home, at work, in your communities? Because we don't start living our legacy when we're 80. We can start it today. We start moving towards that and committing to do something for our legacy, to rise through whatever that challenge is, because that's our legacy, how we rise through those moments. But what's my legacy going to be? Well, I hope that when my kids are fighting a fight or a revolution, I hope they think of my grandfather, their great-grandfather. And when they're moving to a new city or country and they're scared, but they do it anyways, I hope they think of my parents, their nana and nani. And when they face struggle, which they will, and they already have, and the inclination would be to run or push harder and escape and just move on, I hope that they know that they can rise through it, that they can apply this process, reframe, identify, surrender, and evolve, and that they can be in community together with each other and with others by rising together and rising through any uncertainty. That's a legacy I can live with. Thank you so much. I'm Rashmi Aaron.